Hey, it's Brad Kahn, your head coach here, and I wanted to welcome you to Pain-Free Performance Coaching. Today, we are going to talk about the Egoscue method. And in today's talk, we're going to answer three questions, the three most common questions that we hear all the time. First of all, what is the Egoscue method? So today, we're going to talk about what the method is, what the philosophy is, and how it can be used in your daily life. The second question we get asked all the time is, what does a typical session look like? Are they all the same? How are they different? What's involved? So we're gonna dive into that. And then the third, and what everyone wants to know is, how long will it take to see benefits? The one thing that we don't have enough of in our days, for the most part, is time. So most of us want to see maximum benefits while putting in as much effort as we possibly can, but we don't like wasting time, and neither do we here at Pain-Free Performance Coaching. And as an Egoscue postural therapist, we want to make sure that the time you invest into yourself and into your body is time well spent. So we like to make sure that we maximize the work that's being done in the sessions, and we're not just simply filling time. So we're going to talk about, how long do we typically see, does it take to see some benefits? But before we go down that road, the Egoscue method has been near and dear to my heart for the better part of about 7 years. And let me take you back to a December afternoon. It was a beautiful bluebird day, and we've all experienced those beautiful days. And I was out for a run. I had a little bit of extra time in my afternoon. I was done seeing clients. I didn't have to go pick the kids up to take them to hockey yet. So I thought I would go and get a run in. And I was climbing up a hill. A truck was at a red light. They didn't quite see me as they hit their accelerator to make that left-hand turn. And bam, I got hit by a Ford F-150 all up the left-hand side. Being a good Canadian, I stepped. I took it at the last second like a body check. My right ankle, my left hip, my left shoulder jammed. And when I came out of that hit, everything was slightly rotated and off-center. So I reached out to my Egoscue friends and my therapists I've worked with in the past, and we built a program that was built based on what was going on in my body at the physical time. And we made some adjustments. So after getting hit by that truck, everything just slightly off-center all the time. Hips are rotated, upper body is rotated. I was a little bit like this. And the right ankle just didn't quite feel right. So my therapist, we worked together. We put together a program, and I started to, get myself back into proper alignment. And as a strength conditioning coach at the time, being able to move and spend 30, 40, 50 hours a week on the training floor working with my athletes was key for me to be able to live and to do my livelihood. But that's my story. For you, what I want you to think about is, I want you to go back to that memory. Maybe it was going for a walk. Maybe it was that first time you're riding a bike. Remember what that felt like? Mom or dad was running behind you, and all of a sudden they let go of that bike. And your legs just kept going, and that bike stayed upright for that first time. You had the wind blowing through your hair. You were bouncing along. All of a sudden you looked back and realized that no one was holding on. No training wheels, no one holding onto the back of the seat. You were doing it. Remember how good that felt? Remember how good your body felt? There is no reason that as we get older and as we age and we do different things and get hurt, that we can't have that feeling. And that's where I know the Egoscue method comes into place. So the Egoscue method is so much more than just a set of exercises that you're done with your therapist and in a menu and homework. It's a philosophy and it's a way of life. And there's 8 principles that we follow through on that we like to make sure that we're all adhering to. But in the end of the day, when you have a therapist that you can connect with and someone who starts to understand your body, and more importantly, you start to understand your body, it becomes a way of life and a daily habit. And all of a sudden, we know that muscles move bones, and when the shoulders, the hips, the knees, and the ankles are all aligned horizontally and symmetrically so that we're not sitting up here, we're rotated, then the muscles are able to do what they're intended to do. And we can have so much more success, and we can be pain-free, and we can move, and we can get back to those simple joys in life, like riding that bike. When someone comes in for a session, you know what? No two sessions are alike. No two sessions that you have will be alike. You know what? You're going to come in, first of all, we're going to get to know you. We're going to get to know who you are. We're going to hear your history. Your history does not define who you are, but it definitely plays into who you are right now and the snapshot in time. We're going to take a look at what you're able to do. We're going to do some functional testing. They might be things like, you know what, we're going to hinge and we're going to see how far you can come down. We might go onto the ground. We might see, you know what, where can you get to as you sit back into a child's pose, or as if you're in a position like a cat and dog, can you move? But what's going on? So we can then start to create that picture of what we need to do. We will take some pictures, you know what, because it gives a snapshot in time. We're able to see what's going on, but more importantly, we're able to then use those pictures to educate you. We can show you. Sometimes when we see ourselves every day, we lose perspective. And so by seeing some pictures, we can see what's happening in all four directions. So we'll take them from the front, from the side, we'll even turn you around, take them from the back. And that way we can have a conversation. And as you start to understand more of what's going on with you and your body, we're then able to teach you and make sure that the exercise and the menu that we give you makes a lot more sense. So in that typical session, you know what, you're going to come in, we're going to go through some assessments, we're going to talk, we're going to make sure that maybe if you've got a menu, we'll go through the menu that you've been doing, we'll see what felt really good, what didn't really feel like really good. You know, sometimes the menu will stay exactly the same, sometimes there'll be some big changes, sometimes some little changes. But all in all, in the end of the day, in that session, you know what, we're going to go top to bottom, head to toe, we're going to work. What we like to say is we're going to try and mitigate the symptoms. So if you come in and there's a back problem, or there's some pain in your low back, for instance, you know what, we're going to try our best to make sure that those symptoms are mitigated first. The second one we'd like to do, you know what, if there is rotation, we want to get that rotation out of the body. Could you imagine if they built another layer on top of the Leaning Tower of Pisa? How strong and stable would that be? Or would it just crumble? So instead of trying to build strength on top of a foundation that is crooked or rotated, you know what, we're going to mitigate that rotation, we're going to reduce that rotation, we're going to get you back in alignment, and then we can neutralize the pelvis, because some of us come in and that pelvis maybe is stuck way back here, or maybe we're walking in and that pelvis is way out here, or it could be elevated, or even some elevation and some rotation. So we're going to, again, neutralize that pelvis. We're going to want it, again, shoulders, hips or pelvis, knees and ankles all aligned as vertically and horizontally as possible. Once we get those three in line there, you know what? We're going to be making sure we work from the inside out. So making sure that things like your deep hip flexors, your deep six, which are muscles like your psoas, are actually doing what they're supposed to do. And you know what? Those hip flexors are intended to make sure that hip wants to flex and extend. And so we want them to be doing their primary job. We don't want other muscles to be taking over, or these guys to be doing the job of other muscles. So we're going to make sure that we work muscles in the body from the inside out. And finally, after all this, you know what? As we get towards the end of the session, we want to make sure we leave the body in neutral. We want to leave you in a position that is as optimal as possible, so that way when you walk out of here and you have your menu, you are set and ready to go, whether it's for the next week, the next 2 weeks, until your next session. How long does it take for us to see benefits? Well, you know what? Most people we see tend to see some benefits in that first session. And that's not all, because again, we're all individuals, but as we start to get things back in alignment and start getting the right muscles to be working, most people that we work with do see improvements within that first week. Ideally, though, we start to progress and progress and progress. So it's not in 6 to 8, 10 weeks, we'll start to see some benefits. We want to start to see us be able to mitigate some of those symptoms, reduce rotation, neutralize that pelvis, so that way when you walk out of there at the end of that first day, things are feeling fantastic. How long will a session be? You know what? In that first session, you know what, we love to have about 90 minutes. After that, most sessions tend to be about 60 minutes, but the menu is going to depend on the individual, the goals, how deep that dysfunction goes, and how many things we need to work on. So without getting too into the weeds on this here, you know what? The ideal menu is as long as it needs to be for you to see the benefits. No more nor less. Let's maximize the time. So as you start to look at your body in a whole different light, and you see maybe what's going on, and things that used to be really easy, like maybe just reaching up and grabbing something, or picking your child up from the ground, or even getting down on the ground and playing with your kids, or my weekend warriors, my golfers, my tennis players. There's no reason that you spend 2 or 3 days after your sporting event or playing with your kids or playing with your grandkids being in pain. Pain is just an indication that there's something wrong, and we need to dive deep and try and help you to fix that. So that's what we are here at Pain-Free Performance Coaching. As Egoscue postural therapists, we're here to help you, and our goal is to get you back to that feeling of euphoria. You know, when you were riding that bike, that wind in your hair. We're here to help you, and our motto here is, you know what? Limitless movement potential. Until then, it's Brad Kahn here.